You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, we continue talking about video store memories. That's right, we continue walking down nostalgia lane into the aisles, new releases, classics, cult classics, you name it. And on this episode, we have Alan, returning guest, and we're talking about his memories of working at a video store. It's going to be fun. Here we go. Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me today, fellow co-host Pete Sharpino, and we have returning guest Alan. We've talked about a little bit of everything, TV themes, Saturday morning cartoons, all the good stuff. Alan, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, fellas. It's my favorite place to be, is on the Fan2Fan. I'm not even joking about that. I rather enjoy being here, and it's one of the highlights of my weeks and months.
Alan, anytime we ever talk about things, we always kind of go back to our VHS rental days before the blockbusters and the Hollywoods and the family videos. We're talking the mom and pops. You had a VHS movie rental store at a gas station, maybe at a grocery store before it kind of blew up. Betamax and VHS, beaded curtains, push pops, your Hostess cake, and Terminator.
Movie tonight on video. Movie tonight on video.
See blockbuster hit. Get scared out of your wit.
Movie tonight on video.
Say, they got a full selection. Look for me, Rocky, in the action section.
Movie tonight on video. Movie tonight on video.
VHS, big part of our lives, renting these movies, rewatching them, summer breaks, vacations, sleepovers. They were a big part of it. And one of the things you mentioned, Alan, in our conversations, that you actually used to work at a video store. Pete, did you ever work at a store?
I did not, but the dream job when we were younger, to be able to have that access to all the movies that, we saw on the shelf. And because again, before Blockbuster came along, you had most of the time one copy of said movie. And if that was out, you were out of luck and would have to go to alternatives. So no Faces of Death. Next thing you know, well, let's try this Evil Dead. We'll see if this is any good. So, a great way to discover some movies. I'm anxious to hear Alan's recollections of working, coming up with picks for people, employee picks. I think that's romanticized era where, you curated your list of movies, whether they were new releases or maybe some obscure titles.
So, Alan, fill in the blanks a little bit. When did you work at a video store? What was the name of it? Go down the list.
Absolutely. So I first started working at Mike's Movies. It's in Boston, Mass. There were two locations, one on Cambridge Street in Boston, and then the other was in the South End, which is just, sort of deeper in Boston over by like Bay Village. Mike's Movies existed during the time of Blockbuster and Hollywood hits, Superstar Video. And what we were was we were in like an independent alternative to the big box Blockbuster stores. We had all the new releases competitively against a place like Blockbuster, but what we had was beneath us was a warehouse, a treasure trove of every movie you've ever seen. Pete said Faces of Death. We had all of them in our Captain Cult section. So I started working there in 1999. I was a transferred junior going to Suffolk University. I was walking down the street, just Cambridge Street, where Suffolk, used to house most of its buildings. I saw a now hiring site in this really cool video store window, and I ran in there with just nervous anticipation. Give me an application. I filled out the application. They interviewed me on the spot. They saw my enthusiasm about movies. The first thing that I noticed was that it was just really, it was a really cool atmosphere. They had 9 TVs on the wall that overhung, sort of like our dungeon of inventory. The new releases were upstairs. The older stuff was downstairs. The porn room was downstairs. Everybody that worked there, had this, cool look about them. And here I am, this, really heterosexual male into action movies and comedies and new releases. And I think that's what they were lacking at the time, was someone who was lame, because that was me. But this store grew my appreciation for movies and my catalog of film. I was already a huge fan of film at the time, and I thought I knew a lot. But working there from 1999 to roughly 2005, 2006, when the owners sold the store, I was a clerk. Friday and Saturday nights, the shit shifts that nobody wanted, to becoming the assistant head manager of the store in 2004. As Pete was talking about before, making the employee picks was probably the most important part of your job, especially in a store like that, where the only thing I can compare it to is Empire Records. Very similar feel. Everyone had stories. Everyone had these cool backgrounds where they were from, and they had all this really neat perspective on, making your employee picks said a lot about you. So, my first employee picks, I remember them. They were horrible. They were Independence Day. They were Terminator 2. So I'll never forget. Well, I had my first employee picks up. It was the first thing I got to do on my first shift, was make my employee picks after I did my quick training, which was about 5 minutes. And the kid who was working with me, this kid, Derek, he comes by and he goes, we're going to give you one night to change those.
Was everyone around them like Remains of the Day and Yojimbo, Art House? Really?
Kurosawa films.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. Was it closer to that?
We had like a Roger Waters guy. We had horror guys. We had foreign film people. We had independent film buffs. We have a section called Camp and Cult in the basement. So the basement was subsections by genre: horror, thriller, the staff picks, the 99 cent movies, the movie of the month that was 99 cents, like the movie genre, whatever, or theme. A massive foreign section. It was a massive classic section, which I got into classical movies. There was a 90s section, an 80s section, romantic comedies, chick flicks. I mean, anything you could think of. We had thousands and thousands of titles, and it was my church. And I went there every day that I could go. I would work extra shifts. I would take other shifts. I just loved being there. I loved being a part of that culture of you're standing behind the counter. And just like Pete said, people come in and they're like, and you're like, maybe I do know. That was probably my favorite part of the job, helping customers, once I got to know them, make their picks, because what ends up happening is you get repeat customers, you build friendships, bonds, relationships with people. They count on you. They wait for your Saturday shift to come in and rent 5 movies for $10 because they can't pick those 5 movies without you.
I was just going to echo, Pete, what you said earlier. Working at a video store would have been living the dream. Working at a multi-level video store, that definitely would be at the next level.
As you were describing it, I immediately Empire Records was coming to mind, or I guess if you want to get a little more colloquial to Massachusetts, it was like Newberry Comics. Back in the old days at Newberry Comics, I feel would have a similar vibe. Talk a little bit, Alan, about the cast of characters that you work with. I have to imagine that there were some very colorful personalities working at a place like that.
The head manager was this wonderkind girl named Jen Rufo. She was like 19 years old and was the head manager of this 2-store empire of these owners from the South End, Stephen and Michael. They owned a real estate corporation, and 2 of the pieces of real estate they owned were Mike's Movies 1 in the South End and Mike's Movies 2 in Beacon Hill. So Jen was like this 19-year-old head manager. She was really cool, had just a real awesome taste in movies. The assistant manager was her roommate, guy named Joe. Joe had pink hair when I met him. He had rainbow-colored hair by probably the 4th week. He was a huge Roger Waters fan. He had really, really deep artistic taste. You said Kurosawa, I believe that was him, that had, sort of like all those sort of movies in his picks. Definitely thought I was a fraud when I first came in, and I was, admittedly. We had Maria, who was this really weird chick who wore prom dresses, probably off of dead people. I don't think she bought them unless she verified that they were off a corpse. There was an older manager named Patrick, who I call him old. He was probably 31 at the time, but we thought he was ancient. Patrick, was very buttoned down, very serious, and, he kept the weekends together. There was my buddy Jamie, who was like the wisecracking asshole of the store, just made everybody laugh and had impeccable movie taste as well. There's a kid named Malachi. His name was Malachi Sky Bible. And Malachi, you can imagine, looked like a Malachi.
Did he have Children of the Corn on his staff recommends?
Yeah, Yeah, I don't think he would even he would dream about it. But like everybody would come in and they'd be like, "Your name's Malachi," and he'd be like, "Yes." "Do you like Children of the Corn?" And he'd be like, "No." But yeah, I mean, we had this amazing skill for hiring people. So our interview was always tell us about how you love movies. That's how I got my job. Like I said, I may have had horrible taste when I started working at that video store, but Jen could see that I loved movies. Like I could go on and on over the years. The people that we hired that had like wonderful movie taste, and sometimes the people that we would hire that just would get rolled. I mean, this crew, I started on, I would work Friday and Saturday nights, and I worked with these guys from the Cape, Colin and Derek. And what you would love about Colin and Derek is they were huge Troma fans. They were both, enrolled in school, in mass art for different things. And Derek was there for like movie makeup. Colin was there, I think, for glass blowing or some shit. They opened my life to Troma films and to like deep horror, zombie movies, and like shit that I had never even thought about watching. When I was growing up watching John Hughes and like Top Gun and Beverly Hills Cop, and thinking that these were the only movies out there. And then I was deep for knowing those. We would finish up at midnight. The store closed at midnight, which I thought was like a really cool thing. We'd get high, we'd go over to their apartment, and we would watch horror movies until 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I would drive home and do it all over again the next day.
Come to Audio Video Plus, your home for VHS, Beta, and Laserdisc. 5 movie rentals for $5 every day.
At Audio Video Plus, we're up to our ears in movies.
From what everyone that you've described, kind of you were the unicorn, because everyone else is digging into, like you said, Troma, Waters, foreign films, independent films, and you're the one that's out there preaching why Lethal Weapon is like a modern action classic. Do you think that's why they brought you in, to balance out the staff and the recommends?
Oh, I know it is. So Jen felt at the time they hired me that they didn't have anybody that knew the new releases. Everybody was so into the basement, ordering films, other stores didn't have. We used to have these like scavenger hunts where like if you knew where a movie was, Jen would give you money to go out and get it, travel to go get it, and you'd go buy it from another video store. I remember in my interview, she said, "Do you happen to like new release movies?" And I was like, "I love new releases. I go to the movies every week." Her smile came across her face and she's like, "You're exactly what we need." I felt like an alien in that store for at least the first year that I worked there, because like I just wasn't cool at all. And I had really lame movie taste, but they needed that for all the people that would come in from MGH. We had a huge customer base from Mass General Hospital that was right across the street. People that would be laid up in the hospital for a few days or a week or a month, and their families would come over. And I mean, they were from all over, and they would just be like, "What's good?"
You started around 95?
99.
99? Okay. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, because you mentioned Independence Day, Titanic, that was already out at the time.
97.
But movies like Species, Waterworld, Congo, Judge Dredd, like that's the kind of stuff that like you're recommending to people because that's what they're wanting to rent.
What I became and what I was at the video store are two totally different things. So when I first started working there, I would walk the floor, with customers and, like the new release wall, and sort of like point people, and you make your money on new releases and you make your money on new release late fees, right? As you start to, come into the later part of my career, I'm almost like a personal assistant to our Bedrock customers in Beacon Hill behind us, who come in and like they'll come in on Saturday and they'll like wait to see me, and we'll walk around the basement. We'll walk around, and create a list based on like what they haven't seen. All Kevin Bacon movies or all John Carpenter movies, or it was my pleasure to like rent people movies and then have them come back and be like, "This was the best movie I ever saw," or like, me so well, that sort of thing. And we got free candy out of the deal because we had the candy and the popcorn and stuff like that as well. So
like a movie sommelier walking around trying to figure out what they liked before. Hey, you liked Missing in Action, so let me show you this other Chuck Norris movie that you may like.
Exactly. You just need to pick up on a person's personality, a style, what they tell you they like, they didn't like. A lot of times they'll, like, the movie customer would start the conversation for you. Because they'll be like, I came there last 3 times, and the short kid with the tattoos and the giant skater pants on, he doesn't get me. Tell me what you like. Like, what are your top 3 movies? Like, and then I would say to them, I'd catch them with, like, you're in the mood for a comedy, tell me your top 3 comedies. If you're in the mood for a horror, tell me your top 3 horrors. And then that would rope people in, because they'd be like, all right, now I have a little bit of focus. Then you take them downstairs, and it's 4 walls of horror movies. Everything's on VHS. Everything is also on DVD, because we were one of the first independent stores to do that. Every copy of everything we had on VHS, we also had on DVD.
Did you guys have any Laserdisc by any chance?
I don't think they ever went into Laserdisc. If we had some, they were probably promotionals, and then the staff probably stole them, because we love stealing promotionals and porn. A pretty good story about the porn truck. So when I became the assistant head manager, it was roughly like 2003, 2004. I had finished college at Suffolk University, and the owners came to me and they were like, "Look, you're dedicated. You're here. You're a shift manager. We want to make you. We want to give you a salary." So, like, my friends were so jealous of me. I was given a salary in 2003 of like $49,000 a year plus medical benefits, paid vacation, and sick leave to be the night manager of the video store that I used to watch movies all night. It was a trip to be offered a job. So, I had just finished college, so I was out interviewing, and no place in 2003 was offering somebody with a bachelor's degree in fucking communications $49,000 a year. It was all radio stations and communications firms offering me like $20,000, $25,000. My parents were psyched too. They were like, "So we just put you through college for 5 years so you could work at the video store that you worked at in college." And I was like, "But I'm making so much money." And my parents were like, "You know what that's going to look like on your resume?" And I wasn't thinking about it at the time because I was high. We were so high. Everybody in the store smoked weed, right? There was like not a single person who didn't. Even Patrick smoked pot. The store constantly smelled of weed. So anyways, the porn truck. So I get made the assistant manager. So now one of my duties, because I work Friday afternoons from 3 to midnight, I have to deal with like the once a month job of going on the unmarked porn truck that would pull up in front of the store and picking 10 DVDs and 5 VHS to add to our porn dungeon in the basement. It was crazy. So the first day that I have to do it, I'm getting all amped up because what's the porn truck? And I'm thinking it's going to be like an ice cream truck, right? Someone's going to open the slide and they're going to be like...
Playing a little jingle as it rolls up.
Right. It's an 18-wheeler. It's all black, unmarked, hardcore XXX. And there would be... You would have the list. And the list would come from some of the employees who would... And some of the customers who would say, "I want more bukkake." And I'd be like, "Do you have any bukkake?" And he would be, "Right this way, sir. But I had a budget." And the guy who drove the truck, like, I remember he had like a fucking mullet. He reeked like cigarettes.
So wait, when you said you had like a budget, are you paying this guy from the till, or you're writing out a check, or he's like, "Yep, I'll send the invoice"?
I don't know if there was much of an invoice. I believe the porn budget was like $100 to $120 a month. And the reason for that is the markup on that is just insane, because one of the hidden things about a video store is like the porn room probably makes half of its profits. And then 25% the new releases and 25% promotions, late fees and promotions. So the DVDs would cost to buy them retail way less than it would to cost than it would to buy like a new release like Minority Report.
So what's like a comp? Because I remember back in the day, I tried to buy, was it Batman Returns? And the guy at the video store was trying to talk me out of it, saying, "Kid, it's going to cost you like $100 to buy this." And I didn't believe it, but then you find out that the markup on that is super high, and that when they're renting it out every day, 5-6 times a week, that's how they're making their money back. So what does something like a Minority Report, what are they paying for that at the store versus like the porn truck selection?
So like a Minority Report back then probably cost you about $50 a copy on DVD. We actually heavily invested in Minority Report because we believed that it was going to be a huge movie, and it was. We made tons of money, and then we sold them at like $50 a pop, and people were coming in and buying that Tom Cruise sci-fi bullshit, and it worked to a T. But the porn was cheap. The porn was like $10 versus Minority Report was $50, and the porn would get rented 3 times as much as even the most like beloved new release.
Bull Durham, Pet Cemetery, 49 cents every day, only at Music Plus. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Big, 49 cents every day, only at Music Plus. Mississippi Burning, Skin Deep, 49 cents every day, only at Music Plus. Batman, Cinderella, 49 cents every day, only at Music Plus. Thousands of rentals, only 49 cents every day, only at Music Plus.
Mike's Movies takes requests. If you wanted Snow Falling on Cedars and you also wanted like Ass Pirates Part 9, you could ask for both of those and it would just be on the list. And then, I would take the list out to the porn truck and I'd be like, okay, so, this one's looking for Vivacious Vixen 6. Do you have that? And if we had that, then sometimes we would give that customer the opportunity to come in and buy that movie marked up. I mean, it was a whole operation. Going into the buyers' meetings, we came up with the idea to rent The Sopranos in episodes, and 6 Feet Under in episodes, Curb Your Enthusiasm in episodes, The Office, as opposed to, we used to rent them at a higher cost than like a whole bundle. So, it was like you can get the whole first season of The Sopranos for $12. And then we were like, well, if we just go with disc 1, episodes 1 through 3 for the normal $3.99.
But is that a case where you guys were buying The Sopranos season 1 and then breaking it apart, or were you buying that, I don't say wholesale, but like were you paying a premium for that versus just going to Target or Walmart or Best Buy?
So I think that the issue was we never bought movies from Target. Back then, if you remember, and still to this day, you go to Target to buy a new release or a Blu-ray, and it's like $30-$40, right? We could get first season of Sopranos for $50 and then just rent out each disc of that season over and over. I mean, those discs, The Soprano, I'll never forget cleaning the Sopranos discs because they were shredded.
What I'm loving that you're talking about here is that what we kind of talked about at the beginning was early days of video rental stores. We were talking like BB, like before Blockbuster. So like very different time before Blockbuster swallowed all the mom and pops. When you got to work at an indie store during Blockbuster's rise and height. So what I love is like there's this really stark contrast between that sterile, overly lit, bland experience of walking into Blockbuster, what you seem to have gotten to experience for those many years at Mike's Movies. And I have to think that the people that you work with, there had to be like a really low turnover rate. It sounds like a job that like that crew was just content, or not just content, but like loving to be around, and like getting a new person in there sounds like it would be pretty tough because no one was going to leave that job.
Yeah, it was tough to break in. It was tough to be part of, the main crew. You had to have a certain personality. You're absolutely right, Pete. The turnover in, 6 or 7 years that I lasted there, the turnover was not large. It was probably 20 employees. You really only lost people to college graduation or to growing up. You never really saw people just quit. I mean, remember, we had 9 TVs on the wall. We had three TVs above us at the counter. So we had movies going all the time. So that was another aspect of it, is like by day, we had to be careful that the owners might walk in. So we had to keep it like PG-13 and shit. But at night, it became Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It became, Evil Dead. It became Texas Chainsaw Massacre, kind of like whatever anybody was feeling. And generally on the shifts were anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. So between 6 and 8 hours, you can get 3 or 4 movies. So if you have 3 clerks working or 2 clerks and a manager, everybody gets to have a choice. You're dealing with people with impeccable taste. So you're really not ever going to watch something bad. I remember the first time I ever saw Ed Wood was on the 9 screens, one of the first days I ever worked.
Underrated classic. Great movie.
It was always an experience walking in there and seeing, what was on the screens. The screens sort of were overwhelming. The place, stunk of popcorn and pot. Coming in and meeting with us, I mean, we just shit on the Blockbuster experience. We'd be like, they don't have that movie at Blockbuster. Blockbuster at the time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, is filtering out all of their old inventory. They're selling it. We're going there to Blockbuster, like going out of business sales and to Blockbuster clearance sales, and we're snatching those titles we don't have to add them to our library because we take pride and having movies that you've never heard of. And
was Mike standalone? Was it in a mall? Was it close to anything that, was kind of like a good magnet for traffic?
2 standalone brick and mortars. So the one that I worked in on Cambridge Street was across from MGH, from the main hospital, from Mass Eye and Ear. We were at the base of Beacon Hill, so we had all the wealthy people of Beacon Hill pouring in every Friday and Saturday night. I mean, this is kind of a cool idea of how popular this video store was. We used to have a shift manager, and 2 clerks on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day, right? We opened at 10, we closed at midnight. And basically from about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday until 11 o'clock at night, you had 10 people in line renting videos on the weekends. It was during the week that we had some time to deal with people in the mornings. On Saturday, we had some time to deal with people to get the returns put away. The place was just constantly packed. 3 rows of people, and people bought our candy. They bought our popcorn. They bought the movies we would sell. And, then a snow day would come, and it would be like we would have to bring in 3 more clerks just to deal with returns and restocking the shelves, because then the line's out the goddamn door. And, I'll put a bow on this by saying I used to have this recurring dream, because there was this, we had a return slot. And at midnight, we would always, we'd lock the door. I was on the night shift, so I'd lock the door, and people would come running down and banging in there like, I don't want to get a late fee on this, because like it clearly states in our rules that if you're in a minute after 11:59 p.m. on the night it's due back, it's late. So we would tell them, don't worry about it. We'll get it in. We'll get it checked in for tonight. And people would bang on the door. So I would go home and have these like recurring dreams. People would come in through the locked door and the store would fill up. It was just always, it was so busy. In the time that I worked there, I didn't work the end when it was dying. And the owners, Michael and Steven, were smart enough to get out ahead of time. They sold it. People who came in and bought it killed all the full-time managers, or the salary people. I only ever worked there when the video store was in its last sort of like blush of popularity and the experience. And that's what I think is missing from movie going now. You can really only get it at the movies anymore. That feeling like you're doing something special, because that's what video stores did for us. Is they let us go, they let us meet, they let us talk to other movie fans. In our case, they let people come in and build relationships with us, where, like you said, we were like a sommelier. We're people's personal assistants for helping them build a collection and helping them build a style. And from there, you're able to pick movies. Now you go online and you're flicking through Tubi, and there's a billion titles, and it could take you a lot longer to pick a title, off of Tubi than it could if you walked in and I told you, don't watch Ski School, it's lame.
And it's funny, I never thought of it that way, because I know, Pete, you've talked about how you and your cousin would go scouting the aisles to see if your picks are there, and if they're not there, you kind of have to settle for something else. It can be a process. It's not like you're not making 3 quick picks. You're going down the aisles, trying to figure out, do we go for this one? And you're gathering a little stack of B choices, but that you're probably going to spend as much time picking a movie as you are watching the movie. So it's a big deal to do that. So I think it's an interesting thing you said, Alan, because I never thought of it that way, that through every streaming service online, you can basically always watch the movie you want to watch. That's not a big deal now. Like if you wanted to watch Evil Dead, you could just watch it. It's not that big of a deal, because if you went to the store, it may not be there. So you might kind of be forced to have to discover another movie, or have someone, fortunately like you, that's like, hey, yeah, sorry, we don't have that one, but you might like Dead Alive. You might like this other thing, because now you're giving me like you like the Sam Raimi vibes. I've got you. I got something else for you. You build that trust. They come to you next time. What else you have?
It's not a perfect analogy, but it reminds me of the Devo song, Freedom of Choice, where like the line is like, freedom of choice is what you've got. Freedom from choice is what you want. Like Alan, like you're saying, like you go on Tubi, you just scroll until you be like, hey, and I'll go with this, as opposed to going into the video store. And I didn't have like the curated experience that you provided at your store. But again, like if there was something there that was out, then you were forced to then pick something else. And that could lead to a great discovery. Again, like I'm trying to think of like, something like Waxwork or like Evil Dead. Like I know for sure, like my cousin and I picked those because Friday the 13th Part 2 was out. There's still that discovery from it, but you were kind of more forced into it, as opposed to now it's like so much is at your fingertips. And if Tubi doesn't have it and you want to spend $3, you go on Amazon and you just order it. And yes, you can stumble across something and give something a try and be like, oh, well, this is ridiculous. But there's some of that just feels lost at this point.
I think it taught us patience too, to not be able to get everything we want when we want it. You might call in and say, I need this new release and I need you to hold it. And we'd be like, no, we don't hold new releases. It's first come, first serve. We would have all new movies up on the walls they wanted to come see. But it was kind of nice to not be one of those video stores that held movies. You also don't want to be the guy that walks in with his date and sees us playing like Ghost Dog up on, the 9 screens. And, his girl's like, oh, this movie looks cool. And it's like, oh, gosh, can I have this movie? And it's like, yes, you can have it, because that's one of our rules.
Another underrated classic. That's a good one. Forrest Whitaker shout out.
With Movies and More, the best seat in the house is right in your own living room. If you thought you had to spend a fortune to see the latest blockbusters, think again. Movies and More gives you Hollywood's best for the price of a popcorn alone. Need a TV, camcorder, or a VCR? Call Movies and More. Get a free lifetime movie club membership just by buying a new VCR from us. Movies and More, New England's largest video store. There's one near you. Check your yellow pages. Movies and More, with the best seat in the house.
I was going to ask, as I guess, we get close to wrapping up, but this is great. This is like an awesome insight into working at a video store, which you never got before. I was going to ask if when you became an assistant manager, if you got a sense of things kind of winding down, but it sounds like you left before ownership changed hands and then the store died. So I want to ask you about that, and you may not know the answer to this, but you sounds like you had just this amazing inventory. Do you know what happened to that inventory when the stores finally closed?
Well, Rebecca actually knows. Rebecca had them on Facebook.
So Joe was the one that ended up with it. And then they made an announcement and everything. And they basically had this major sale, walk in and come and get your movies. And people went in and it went pretty fast.
Do you remember what we went and got? Night of the Comet. And do you boys want to know why I went in and got my Night of the Comet? Because I am the slick motherfucker who drove back in 1999 to impress everyone up to Peabody to the closing of the mom and pop store that operated out of a smoke shop across the street from the driving range in Middleton. There's a Richardson's and a driving range, and across the street there was this shitty little smoke shop. Basically sold bongs and pipes and cigarettes and cigars. And for some reason, they rented out 100 movies. Shit you could not get. I went up there. Jen gave me a fistful of money because we didn't have the people upstairs. And everybody was all up in arms about the fact that our only copy of Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs was torched in somebody's VCR. So I played the hero. I drove up. Do you guys have People Under the Stairs? They were like, yes. And then I was like, what is this movie right here? And the guy was like, oh, it's the movie about a comet, turns everybody into dust. I'm like, and I have this recollection to being a kid and seeing Night of the Comet with Kelly Maroney. Give me that one too. And the guy's like, sure, you can have them both for $20 each. And, I came back the victor that day and everybody was like, all right, he's not so lame. I went back and I got both of them before they closed because I was like, I did the legwork.
That's awesome. It's awesome.
The filter color,